Hello, and welcome to your sister in elections, where today I'm going to be looking at the possibility and possible scenarios where Donald Trump could win re-election, and I'm going to go through a couple or a few of the scenarios in which the incumbent president could see his re-election bid be successful. Now, just to start off, we are 1 week exactly away from election day, and looking at 538's election prediction, they currently have Joe Biden with an 88 out of 100 88% chance of winning in a week's time against Donald Trump, the incumbent. Now, just from an outside perspective, the media seems to be quite pro Biden at the moment. Whether it be their predictions, whether it be their coverage, it does seem to be quite entrenched with the Biden camp, and Donald Trump does seem to be clutching at straws when it comes to possible ways in which he can turn this election around. Now, I've already shown you the polls. Biden is leading possibly anywhere between 7 to 10 points nationally. And it does not look the best position for Donald Trump. But I'd just like to bring your attention to this bit down in the bottom left. And it does say, don't count the underdog out. Upset wins are surprising, but not impossible. Now, I'm just going to look at a few certain ways in which Donald Trump can still win this election. It is by far over, despite the fact that uh, near enough 60 million people have already voted early. At this point, possibly more, because the last time I checked that was on Sunday. We could still see Joe Biden losing this election to Donald Trump, though any loss Joe Biden would incur would be a narrow one. You're not going to see anything more than the electoral vote count that Donald Trump got in 2016. You're not going to see anything over 306 votes for the incumbent president. Now, what am I going to start? I'm going to start at possible news uh, news outlets that have come out, or news stories, should I say. And I'm going to focus on the Hunter Biden laptop scandal that has been in the news for the past week and a half. First, brought about by the New York Post, it essentially describes that Hunter Biden dropped off a laptop in Delaware to be repaired. He did not come back, and the store owner basically looked in the laptop, downloaded information which he thought, was scandalous and illegal, and then handed it over to the FBI and Rudy Giuliani as well, who then released the information or gave the information to the New York Post, which released it at around the middle of the month. Now, whether or not this is 100% accurate, there are quite a few, things to highlight in this story, which do make it seem a little less plausible than it is. But if this is true, and Joe Biden willingly interfered with Hunter Biden's overseas business and interests, then that could show that he is most definitely corrupt and would play into the Trump campaign's messaging and focus on Joe Biden being just as corrupt as Hillary Clinton was back in 2016. Now, of course, Hillary Clinton, suffered immensely when James Comey announced that he was reopening the FBI investigation 11 days before the election, and that definitely took a toll and arguably was the main reason that she ended up losing that election in the three Rust Belt states. And, you know, despite the fact that, the said, uh, that said, um, uh, computer or repair shop owner was, blind and only took and the only reason that he knows that it is Hunter Biden is that said person identified himself as Hunter Biden and had a sticker on the outside of a laptop, as well as the fact that said uh, new shop, said repair store owner voted for Trump and, really hasn't released much information. There is still a possibility that this could be entirely correct, and depending on what other information comes out in the following days, I'd say if nothing else has come out by the weekend, this story is going to almost have little impact. But given how close it is to the election and it's not been covered hugely in the news like the FBI investigation was back in 2016 was covered, there's definitely no such extent to that, and realistically this is not going to be that important, as this does seem to be a last-ditch attempt by the Trump campaign to shed some light on Hunter Biden and more closely looking at Joe Biden's involvement in his son's dealings. But I think one news article that is a lot more interesting is the focus on fracking and natural gas, which Donald Trump has, ruthlessly attacked him, especially in the debate, which was definitely Biden's poorest moment, when he seemed to backtrack on his idea that he was going to support the natural gas industry, whereas he said that in the debate, in the final debate that was held last Thursday, uh, Joe Biden fully supported, um, you know, phasing out natural gas, whether that be by 2025, 2035, or 2050. It's not been too clear on that. And especially in places like Pennsylvania, here you have the photo of Biden campaigning in Pennsylvania, which is going to be a very, very key state for both campaigns. That could be very interesting, what comes out of it. And if the voters in rural Pennsylvania do come out in mass, which is what Donald Trump needs to overturn the 6 point lead that Biden currently holds in the gemstone state, the keystone state, sorry. And realistically, if we were looking at, this information, or, Biden seemed to being opposed to the fossil fuel industry, which he definitely is by looking at his plans. He wants to phase out this stuff. But is that really going to have enough of an impact on those Western Philadelphia, Western Pennsylvania voters, Northeastern Pennsylvania voters? Are they going to come out in mass for support for the president? Because Donald Trump is going to lose support in the suburbs around Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. To gain that back, he needs even more people than in 2016 to come out in those rural areas in Trumpland to support him. And that could possibly see him get narrow victories in those Rust Belt states. But realistically, he only needs a narrow victory in Pennsylvania, as well as holding all the other states in the Sun Belt, etc. He can afford to lose Wisconsin, Nebraska's second district, and Michigan, and still win the election. And that's the second point that we're going to move on to. This is basically the 2016 electoral map. I'm just going to put the ones that are of question back into the toss-up column. And Joe Biden, just switch up for Hillary Clinton. This is the exact amount that Hillary Clinton got back in 2016, and then the remaining electoral votes are the three Rust Belt states and Nebraska's second district. Donald Trump only needs to narrowly win Pennsylvania, which is definitely the closest out of all of these districts, out of the district and the three states, because he still gets 279 electoral votes. Pennsylvania is, double what Wisconsin is worth, and 25% more roughly than what Michigan is worth. Joe Biden wins all of these, even by a lean margin, which he's doing. He's on track to win both Wisconsin and Michigan. He could lose Pennsylvania because there only needs to be a slight uh, polling misjudgment or error, like we saw back in 2016, and Donald Trump would be winning in North Carolina, Florida, Arizona, Ohio, Iowa, and Texas comfortably. At least 1 or 2 points, a 1 or 2 point lead for him in those states if the polling was inaccurate. And if he does manage to, narrow the margin between him and Joe Biden in Pennsylvania, if he wins a very narrow election win in the state, then he takes the electoral college, and nothing is going to change that. Even if Joe Biden, does well in Michigan and Wisconsin and Nebraska second, Donald Trump would still see himself be re-elected. Now, there is another possible way that Donald Trump could win, even if he does not win the votes. Say Joe Biden does narrowly win Pennsylvania, but this is only by a 1 or 2 point margin. And he has somewhat close leads in Michigan, but he has a narrow win in Wisconsin. Looking at about 1 or 2 point victories in these three Rust Belt states, and Pennsylvania probably would be even closer than these two. You could see Donald Trump contest the election. He has talked about it a lot, the fraudulent mail voting system, as well as early in-person voting. And he realistically could argue that the election results that come out of these three states are not actually the legitimate electoral results, and they could be, fraudulent. They could be, fake ballots. People could be voting twice. That is essentially the rhetoric that Donald Trump and his campaign has been spouting for the last 3 months, ever since it became clear that COVID would definitely impact the way Americans vote. He has been ruthlessly presenting his case for a fraudulent election. And there's a way that he could do this if he, Amy Coney Barrett was confirmed only yesterday. And if he gets enough of the Republican state legislatures on his side to agree that the electoral results were not actually coherent with the actual vote that ended up happening, he could theoretically get Republican state legislatures in areas like Pennsylvania and Wisconsin to come out and select electoral college voters that will vote for Donald Trump, and he would win the election through there. He doesn't even need a victory. Of course, I highly doubt that this would actually happen come November 3rd, but realistically, it is still a possibility. Uh, as much as the other two things that I said are much more likely to happen, and now a Trump victory in the actual voting numbers, the actual final results on election night come out and say that Donald Trump is winning, are much more likely than Donald Trump to actually properly contest. But, with a 6-3 conservative majority in the Supreme Court and Republican state legislatures in much of the Midwest, Donald Trump could easily get through the Electoral College even if he doesn't win it on election night. Now, those are just a few options, possible scenarios of what could happen if Donald Trump does narrowly win this election. But we are 7 days out. I still think it's, a likely Biden victory at this point, unless something does drastically change. Like I'm saying, you know, focused on fracking and the Hunter Biden laptop scandal. Those are just two news stories, and there could be something else that comes out if there's further developments on the laptop scandal that could be, somewhat impactful. But with 7 days left, if nothing comes out by the end of this working week, we are looking at Joe Biden probably winning in those three Rust Belt states that have quite large margins for him in the polls and quite positive trends for the Democrats in general over the past 4 years. And as much as Joe Biden is likely to win, Trump still has a chance. So, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all again soon.